Hello, today we are going to install Fedora Linux on QEMU virtual machine using Virt Manager. Then we're going to install xrdp RDP remote desktop protocol server and connect to it using the client free RDP. So this is Fedora Linux. The wiki page says Fedora Workstation 38, fedoraproject.org. Let's download the latest version that uses the KDE Plasma desktop. So how do we do that? Fedora spins 38 ISO x86-64 save. Okay, so while this thing is downloading, let's look a bit at Fedora. So Fedora is the open source community that's upstream to the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. The default distribution Fedora Workstation 38 comes with GNOME, so I'm using the spin that uses KDE Plasma desktop, package management, RPM, and DNF. It's not going to be immutable. Okay, I'll pause a bit until the download finishes. Okay, so the download has finished. Let's open Virt Manager, Virtual Machine Manager, and install it in here. File, new virtual machine, forward, browse, Fedora KDE Live. This thing. Forward. Let's give it a ton of resources. 10 gigabytes. 14 vCPUs. Let's make this also big. Fedora 38. Let's make it just Fedora. Customize before install. So it's not using UEFI. Great. The newest motherboard. Just one CPU socket. 14 cores. So 14 vCPUs, virtual CPUs. 10 gigabytes of RAM. The hard disk is the fastest possible, which is Virt.io. CD-ROM, where I have the boot ISO. Network interface card is the fastest, Virt.io. And just defaults, begin installation. Test this media and start. See how fast is the testing of the media. Pretty fast. Okay, so first it made sure that the ISO was downloaded correctly, then it boots straight from the CD-ROM in live CD mode. It proposes a larger screen resolution by default. Okay, so first I'm going to install it to the hard disk. Let's make sure we don't start the installer more than once. Hopefully this is okay, so we'll keep most defaults, English, English US. Okay, root account. Disabling root account is probably not enabling remote connection using SSH and root account not having a password, I guess. User. So it will be able to do sudo to become super user. I need to press done twice. Once, twice. Okay, networking will be default, so DHCP from the virtualization software. The time zone seems okay. Select the devices. And what are you going to do? So let's see. Full disk summary in bootloader. I'm not sure what it wants to do. Hopefully it does not want to do BTRFS because I want to use ext4. So no BTRFS, no encrypt. You haven't created any mount points, create them automatically. So what did it do? Home. I don't want this thing. Remove. /boot, BIOS boot, and VDA3. How do I make this use all of the available space? So VDA1 is BIOS boot, which is, I'm not sure what. VDA2 is ext4/boot, and VDA3 is /ext4. So it looks okay. Done. I uses GPT, not MBR partition table. Accept changes. This is about it. Begin installation. Okay, we'll pause this for a bit. Okay, so it finished installing packages, and now it's installing the bootloader. Not sure why it's taking so long. Let me pause some more. Okay, now it says complete. Reboot the system to boot from the hard disk. So we're still in the live CD. We're going to restart. This is shutting down the live CD. Okay, now it has rebooted. The virtualization software knows how to remove the CD-ROM from the CD-ROM slot. Okay, this is SDDM, the desktop manager from the KDE community. Let's log in. This is the first run wizard from KDE Plasma. So the networking works, the web browser works. Finish. Let's see if we can connect to this virtual machine using SSH. So the network interface card has this IP address. SSH. Okay, says connection refused. Probably the SSH server is not installed. Let's do that. Can we become super user? We can. DNF search. Search. Okay, so DNF search open SSH. It's downloading the metadata, the list of packages that are available on the Fedora 38 online repositories. Fedora package search SSH. Okay, so it's probably OpenSSH server or OpenSSH. DNF install OpenSSH. Already installed. OpenSSH minus server. Already installed. Great. Maybe it's not enabled by default. Sys devices. These are services starting with ATD, ALSA, ATD, ABRT. So it's probably SSH. Nope. Yeah, nav search Emacs minus no x dnf install. So minimal tools such that I can survive at the command line. Yes. Yes. Okay. SSH. There's no SSH in here. Fedora. Open SSH. Open SSH server. Open SSH clients. So it's SSHD. Not sure why it's not shown here. I can see SSSD. SDDM. So says that there's such a thing as SSHD, but it's disabled. So probably systemctl without any parameters just prints the status of the enabled units. Something like that. Okay, so it's disabled. Let's enable it. Systemctl enable minus no. Status again. Let's connect. Yes. Become super user. Okay, and it works. Next up, let's install the SSH, the RDP protocol server. So the remote desktop protocol is a protocol from Microsoft, is an alternative to VNC. If possible, I try to use RDP. So I can install the RDP server xrdp on most Linux distributions and also on FreeBSD. instructions. pub.io on my GitHub page. So on Fedora, there's packages. xrdp. This is the RDP server. I can see xrdp and xorg xrdp. These are the two packages that are required in order to have the server functioning. Yes. Okay, so it says that the xrdp service is not enabled by default. So we'll need to do the same thing that we did with the SSH server. We enable it now. So it's running, but we still this thing xvnc. So the section xorg is probably the one that we want to uncomment. Okay, so this is the section neutrino rdp any. This is the section vnc any. These are backends for the RDP server. So what we actually want is to use the xorg server. Uncomment the entire section xorg. Let's reboot. And let's prepare the command line. So the client for RDP is called xfreeRDP. So we want something with width and height. So this is the username. Not going to put a password anywhere. Width and height. So height, that's 1080p. The V is the IP address. We don't need any ports. The IP address is 107. Okay, and additional goodies. What do we want? We have sound, which is sound sys and then pulse. We want the best possible speed for YouTube. Okay, what else? GFX and RFX. Okay, we want resizable. If we resize the XRDP client window, the resolution inside the virtual machine will change. So that's dynamic resolution. Clipboard copy paste of text is enabled by default. BPP 32 is by default, so how many bits per pixel? And that's about it. Let's run this command line. Says I'm connecting for the first time to this machine. Do I trust this certificate, or is this a man-in-the-middle attack? Trust, yes. And that's it. I'm inside the virtual machine using FreeRDP, RDP remote desktop protocol client, which allows me the best possible graphical user interface connection to a virtual machine. So the best text user interface access to virtual machine is via the SSH client. Control C. 107. The best way to connect using the terminal is using an SSH client. We have all of the best and wisest possible copy of paste of text. We can resize the terminal, and for graphical user interface connections, the best alternative is FreeRDP. So this allows us to resize the window, which will actually change the resolution of the virtual machine. Let's install Kate, the text editor. DNF install Kate. Yes. This alternative text editor from KDE, the simpler one, kwrite, I will actually uninstall, such that I have only one really good text editor from the KDE community. Okay. So this was most of what I wanted to do, which is install the latest version of Fedora KDE Spin inside of a virtual machine that's using QEMU VM, so it's really fast. My hardware host machine is Kubuntu 2304. I'm not sure why it failed to connect. Okay, let's remove. How do we do that? Okay, right. Yes. We need to configure KDE Plasma to my liking. So that's, I'm going to search for Kate, make this thing favorited. Okay, I don't want contact in here. I don't want Dolphin in here. Not Discover. Not Firefox. Firefox should be pinned. It's already pinned on the first position, okay? Let's remove the start screen. Show welcome view for new windows, this thing. Okay, let's check if copy paste works. So the left hand side of the screen, excluding my KDE Plasma panel, is the virtual machine. So this window, copy paste works because I'm connected to the virtual machine using a RDP remote desktop protocol client. And copy paste of text via clipboard is enabled by default. Okay, let's look at the performance. What do we search in here? Okay, so the speed is really good. RDP gives us the best speed possible to connect to a virtual machine, to a remote machine, to hop through VPNs, SSH tunnels, etc. So I really like the speed and performance of FreeRDP and the features, and the fact that it's 32 bits per pixel, the fact that I can resize the window, copy paste works, YouTube playback is kind of smooth. This allows me to not install any tools that are needed by the virtualization software inside of the virtual machine. So in VMware, you have VMware tools, which people usually install inside the virtual machine. In VirtualBox, you usually have VirtualBox editions that people usually install inside of the virtual machine, but I do not want to install anything inside of the virtual machine. I'm not installing any drivers. I'm not compiling any DKMS drivers. I'm not installing binary blob Linux modules. So I'm just installing a regular package, which is, or two regular packages, which is xorg, xrdp, and xrdp. So these two packages. Okay, I'll need to replace this with the correct text, which should be uppercase X and then org. So this is it. Thank you.